So a little bit more explanation of this. Assigning a variable fixes a memory location for the storage, for the data storage. Within its storage limits, a variable may thereafter take arbitrary values, depending on the data type. So what he means by that is if you declare it as an integer, there's a certain amount of memory that that computer or that Visual Studio or that the compiler allocates for that type of variable. So it's kind of limited, so only a certain amount. Okay, if you declare it as a decimal, which is like a double, it's called a double. If you declare it as that, there's a different amount of memory that the compiler will use or reserve for that type of variable. In fact, it'll be more, it'll be bigger. So memory, we use certain amount of memory. Your phones have a certain amount of memory, and computers have a certain amount of memory, and we can use some of it or part of it or all of it or whatever. But anyway, the compiler will reserve a certain amount for an integer, and we'll learn how much, and a certain amount for a decimal number, which is called like a double, and so on. For a constant, both memory location and the stored value are fixed. But we didn't discuss a constant yet, but here's what he means. Here's how you declare a constant. Now remember, to declare a variable, you use dim, but to declare a constant, you don't use dim, you use const, and then you put the name, just like you could put x, and you could put integer, for example, equals 10, but that's called a constant. That means you can't change the value of that. If it's a variable, you can later change the value to something else, but if it's a constant, you can't change the name of it. Sometimes you want to keep something fixed, not change, not be able to change it. Constant is a keyword for declaring the constant. So we have the constant name, the value over here are the name and value of the constant, and the data type, as we said, like integer. Note, variables can also be given initial values. That's different. Even though it's a variable, remember, dim is used for variable. As dim x, so the name of the variable is x, it's going to be an integer, and we give it the initial value 6, but that doesn't mean it can't change to something else. If we did this and used const and gave it initial value, that wouldn't just be an initial value, that would be the value, it couldn't change. But if you're talking about a dim, in other words, if you're talking about a variable, declaring a variable, you can give it an initial value, but it can change. You can change it later to any other value, basically. Declares an integer variable x and sets its starting value to 6. Some examples, const at x as integer equals 10, that can't change. Now you can't see this, can you? Const pi as double equals 3.14. So double basically is a decimal number. Okay? So that's that.